This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. And have you guys noticed that there seems to be a shift happening right now on the global stage that is shifting towards the right of the political spectrum? I mean, in the Netherlands, we've just seen a far-right guy being elected as the prime minister there, Geert Wilders. Of course, in Argentina, they've just elected a far-right libertarian economist to attempt to fix the economy there in Argentina. Of course, in 2024, we have the upcoming election cycle in the US with Donald Trump looking to take the reins. So it feels like times are changing. And typically people on the right tend to be big fans of gold. Certainly libertarians are, and students of the Austrian School of Economics are big fans of gold. So if this trend continues, as this pendulum shifts from the left to the right, what is this going to mean for the future of the precious metals space? Well, joining me on the line right now to discuss this and much more is Jack Hanney. He is the CEO of Patriot Gold Group. PatriotGoldGroup.com is the website. Sir, thank you so much for taking some time today to break all of this down for us. Maybe we could start with this recent win in Argentina by Javier Milei. This guy is a libertarian economist. He is now tasked with saving Argentinians from inflation that is spiraling out of control at about 140%. But his idea is to dollarize Argentina. Essentially, this is the direct opposite direction that the BRICS nations want to go. But he wants to give that a try. So what's your thoughts on the idea of Argentinians getting off the peso and onto the dollar as a means of fixing the economy there?
Well, Dan, thank you for having me. And it's a brilliant move. As you'd mentioned, he's a libertarian economist, and the US dollar is still the dominant reserve currency. And as far as exports are concerned and imports, this dollarization trend is a move away from the peso that could benefit Argentina's economy significantly. As you mentioned, libertarians and conservatives being a fan of gold, there's been a meteoric rise in the price per ounce of gold just over the last few weeks. Some are saying a Santa Claus rally, but really we have the two wars going on right now in Israel and Ukraine. So you have the geopolitical conflict going on, and you also have the Feds hinting at rate cuts in 2024 and the end of the most aggressive rate hike cycle that we've seen in history. So gold right now is on a meteoric tear, up at almost $2,050 an ounce, approaching all-time highs.
Well, I've noticed that when inflation rates rise, gold prices often increase as well. I mean, in the 1980s, gold prices reached then at the time a record of $800 an ounce. And this is following, years of generationally high inflation that was preceding the previous decade. So in these current times of high inflation, wouldn't a gold-backed currency be, preferable to something that is backed essentially by nothing?
Well, you bring up the previous decade, and it's funny that you do. Larry Fink of BlackRock and Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan said that the current economy and the current situation is reminiscent of the 70s. And if we look back at the 70s, in 1979, you had the Iran hostage crises, you had the war in the Middle East, and then you had major metropolitan cities like Chicago, New York, Los Angeles in total disarray. I mean, does it sound? You also had stagflation. And if you look, it's almost nearly identical. In fact, it was Mark Twain who said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Now, in 1970, gold was $35 an ounce. In 1974, gold was $158 an ounce. And between 1974 and 1980, gold went from $158 an ounce to $850 an ounce. So what we're looking at right now is very similar with the gas prices, the cost of food, shelter, inflation. And I mean, this is after 11 rate hikes and the most aggressive rate hike cycle in history. And inflation wins in a knockout.
Well, speaking of rate hikes from the central banks, the central banks specifically have been buying up gold on an insane gold buying spree. I mean, China is one of the leaders here. They are just stockpiling gold at record numbers. What do you attribute this to? Why do you think the central banks now are getting their hands on as much gold as they possibly can?
Well, and some economists are even saying that what China's reporting is not even a half or a quarter of what their gold purchases may be. It could be as little as a tenth of what the real gold purchases by China may be. Now, there's also a huge demand coming out of retail investment demand out of China as well right now. But the central banks, we're looking at a global de-dollarization trend. We're looking at China, Russia, Saudi Arabia. We're looking at the BRICS countries. We're looking at Poland. All the central banks accumulating record amounts of gold in 2023, record amounts, and that's only followed by a record amount of gold in 2022. So what we're seeing right now is, as you mentioned earlier, the BRICS nations. 6 additional countries joined BRICS in Johannesburg back in August. So initially it was only the 5, so it's more than doubled. And if you look at the landmass, the population, the GDP of the BRICS nations, it's over half the globe. One thing I wanted to mention, Canada's entire GDP is $2 trillion a year, $2 trillion. The interest payment on our $34 trillion debt is exceeding $1 trillion a year, and our defense budget is $1 trillion a year. So we're spending the same amount as Canada's GDP on just our defense spending and the interest payments on our debt. So this global de-dollarization trend is not only gaining steam. I think it's 40 other countries have now applied to be a part of BRICS.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so are we seeing the final days of the dollar? And if the dollar does give way to this new BRICS global reserve currency that could even be potentially backed by gold, I don't know if it will, but there's talks of this. What could all of this potentially mean for the future of gold? I mean, we can't predict the future, but should these things take place, what do you think that's going to do to the gold price?
There is talks right now about the BRICS countries and this basket-based reserve currency being backed by a basket of commodities, natural gas, oil, and gold, primarily gold. And what we're looking at is demand will so overwhelm supply that we could be looking as high as $5,000 an ounce, $10,000 an ounce gold. Donald Trump said the U.S. dollar losing its reserve currency status will frankly be our greatest defeat in 200 years. And Tucker Carlson said, it's a war that we cannot afford to lose. The U.S. dollar losing its reserve currency status. And when you have, Brazil, Russia, India with billions of people, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. I mean, you're looking at oil-rich nations, natural gas-rich nations. You're looking at China, India, Russia. I mean, when they're using a new basket-based reserve currency that's comprised, again, of over half the globe as far as landmass, population, and GDP, the U.S. dollar, it doesn't look like it's going to maintain its reserve currency status for that long.
Right. So essentially, geopolitical tensions are potentially going to drive up the demand for gold. And what about the 2024 election? I mean, could that potentially drive up the price as well, or at least the demand?
Huge. Well, as a matter of fact, Deutsche Bank just came out today and said they anticipate rate cuts almost as high as two basis points. UBS is saying rate cuts as much as 2.75 basis points. You have B of A and JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all forecasting rate cuts as early as June of 2024. And if you look at election years, the Feds have a tendency to cut rates and also turn on the printing presses. Gives off the appearance, of course, that the economy is doing well, that the economy is strong. It's good for the incumbent. There's a lot of concerns here that, the Fed could be cutting rates and turning on the printing presses because we see Biden's approval numbers on the economy, right? They're abysmal. They're the lowest of any incumbent in history. So that's a concern that we have, that they're going to try to manipulate the American people by, cutting rates and turning on the printing presses, both of which are massive, massive tailwinds for gold and silver.
Exactly. When we see all these telltale signs that are coming down the pike, I think now is an important time to take a serious, close look at the precious metal space, before it's too late. And you are the CEO of Patriot Gold Group, and one of the things that you guys actually specialize in is offering 401ks, IRAs that are actually backed by precious metals like gold and silver. Can you tell people a little bit about how that works if they're just hearing this for the first time? Because I think it's pretty awesome.
Yes, of course. And in fact, in 2021, we introduced the Inflation Protection No Fee for Life IRA. Now, think of that, back in January of 2021, and what had happened in 2021 and 2022 as far as inflation. Well, going into 2024, we're now offering the 2024 Election Protection No Fee for Life IRA. And I was discussing it with my business partners, and I said, I'll give you 74 million reasons why our clients should be looking into the Election Protection No Fee for Life IRA, because I was there on election night when I saw how many votes Donald J. Trump had won and who was the winner on election night, and then what happened over the next 2 weeks with ballots appearing at 2 and 3 in the morning in Pennsylvania and Michigan. But the No Fee for Life IRA, it's a tax-free, penalty-free IRA rollover in which, if you have a 401k or 403b, can roll into a self-directed IRA backed by physical gold and silver. Now, one thing to mention, I'm not a certified financial investment advisor, nor do I give tax advice, but the funds stay in your retirement account and they roll over to a third-party passive custodian, and you purchase the actual physical asset itself, the actual gold coins, silver coins, gold and silver bars, and those are held in the largest private non-governmental depository in the country in a dedicated, secured, and insured storage. So we have the No Fee for Life IRA on qualifying rollovers, and we also have simple cash purchases for those that are concerned about their checking and savings accounts in these regional banks, because keep in mind, there's $1.5 trillion in interest-only commercial real estate loans that are coming due in the next 3 years. And there's a 30% vacancy rate in these commercial real estate buildings. So that's something else to be concerned with as well, your savings and your checking account and taking possession of physical gold and silver.
Absolutely. And I think physical gold and silver is the answer. Actual, real, tangible money. There's something to be said about that. I mean, I recently got these as a early Christmas gift. These are two 2023 American Eagle, silver ounces. And it's such a cool gift to receive for anybody who understands what real money is, to actually have the tangible assets that you can hold and control completely on your own, outside of the banks, outside of the governments. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, obviously Christmas is around the corner. Do you guys have any kind of, specials or offers for people? I mean, I think this is a cool, very cool gift for people to receive.
Well, it was J.P. Morgan himself who said, gold is money, everything else is credit. Now, you're holding those two silver American Eagles. In October of last year, silver was trading at about $18 an ounce. Today, it's at $25 an ounce. Last October, gold was $16.50 an ounce, and now it's $2,050 an ounce. So as Americans have seen the purchasing power of their U.S. dollar absolutely get destroyed. When you go to the gas pump, when you go to the grocery store, when you're buying a dozen eggs, right? Meanwhile, had you put your money in physical gold and silver, it protects the purchasing power of the dollar. And we have been saying, look, if you were to put gold and silver on your Christmas list this holiday season, it'll make for a much merrier and more profitable Christmas in 2024.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, doing it this year is going to make for like a fantastic return next Christmas. I would absolutely agree. You just look at the track record, and especially when we know that in troubling times, gold and silver do have a historical track record of performing very, very well in troubling times of high inflation, troubling times of, we got wars brewing in the Middle East. We've had, as you said, tensions continuing to escalate between Russia, Ukraine. All these things are really showing no signs of slowing at this point. This may continue into 2024. So I would agree. I think moving assets into something like physical, tangible assets, gold and silver, whether that be the actual metals or even a stock in the metals is a great way to go. So yeah, I guess any final thoughts on that? Like I said, we don't have a crystal ball here. We can't predict the future, but it does seem like moving into 2024, it's kind of like crunch time, and now is the time to make those significant moves. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. Going into 2024, keep in mind, historically speaking, seasonally speaking, we're in the best 5-month period for physical gold and silver. It was November, December, and Q1. Q1, it almost seems that every American and retail investor has a New Year's resolution to add physical gold and silver to their portfolio. Far better to do so ahead of the new year. Going into the new year, what we've always seen is in Q1, gold and silver moving up significantly. And one thing to mention, our national debt's over 34 trillion. At the rate we're going, it'll be over 41 trillion in just a year, because just with this administration, our debt went up $500 billion in just a single month. It was up $20 billion a day, $833 million an hour. So in the time we've done this interview, our national debt had increased $400 million. And there's a direct correlation with the size of the national debt and the price per ounce of gold. In 2020, our national debt was 25 trillion and gold was $1,500 an ounce. Well, now we have our national debt at 34 trillion and gold is at $2,050 an ounce. So with the interest payment on our debt exceeding $1 trillion and our defense budget exceeding $1 trillion, how are we possibly going to bring down the national debt? How is that even possible? So our national debt right now, I mean, even the Speaker of the House, when he took the gavel, the very first thing he said was, the biggest threat to our national security is our national debt. It's skyrocketing. So going into 2024, it's going to be an election year. We're going to get inundated with campaign ads. There's going to be basically useless debates because Trump is far and away the nominee for the Republican Party going into 2024. But again, one thing that we're sharing with our clients is, as we're heading towards November of 2024, I remember November of 2020 very well. And on election night, it was all but certain that Trump had won the election. 74 million votes. So there's 74 million reasons why investors should be looking into physical gold and silver and taking advantage of our 2024 election protection, no fee for life IRA.
Well said. That kind of brings it all back full circle to this idea that the global political spectrum, the pendulum, if you will, seems to be shifting towards the right. And if this trend does continue, as we said, we're going to see big things for gold moving forward in 2024. So where would you say is the best place for people to go? I mean, I would suggest people go to pftgold.com. This is an affiliate. So when you do purchase gold through that link, you're not only helping yourself and your family for your future, but you're also contributing to those of us in the field of alternative media. So it's truly a win-win situation. I want to encourage you guys to check that top link in the description below. But Jack, any final thoughts? I guess we'll leave it at that. Any final thoughts on?
Please, of course, go to your link, because we appreciate, like you say, alternative media, but it's just straightforward media. It's just the straightforward truth, what you're reporting, and we want to support journalists like yourself that are reporting the truth. But you may also call 1-800-974-4653. That's 1-800-974-GOLD, or go to www.patriotgoldgroup.com.
Yeah, I'm going to have all the links for that in the description below. Again, I want to encourage everybody to check it out, especially during this Christmas season, but especially leading into 2024, which I think is going to be big for gold. So again, Jack, thank you so much for taking some time to break all this down for us here today.
Well, Dan, thank you, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.